You're listening to the Fayetteville 411 podcast, produced by the City of Fayetteville, where you will get information about city government and the programs and services we provide. You'll get topics of interest and an inside look into the various departments that help keep our city moving. I'm John Salling.
And I'm Sherry Kropp. And today on the podcast, we have staff from the Stormwater Division joining us to talk about what they do. We have Kayla Mills, Ryan Trogdon, and Nick Baggett. And thank you so much for joining us. We're going to learn a lot today, I'm sure. Kayla, I'm going to start with you. You are the stormwater educator for the Stormwater Division. And when we talk about stormwater, what is stormwater? What does that mean?
So essentially, it's just rainwater, and it's anything that runs off of a surface. It enters your local streams, your rivers, so just essentially rainwater.
And how does stormwater impact our environment?
So it can increase the amount of water in the creeks and rivers, causing it to rise and recede. And depending on the amount of rainfall, it depends if the creeks or rivers will reach the flood stages.
What types of things are considered pollutants?
So many of your common day-to-day things can be considered pollutants. One big one would be sediment, any kind of washout from construction sites, erosion areas in bare soils on your property. But you also have other things, everyday household cleaners, oils, greases, cooking greases, definitely a pollutant. Dog and pet waste, that is also a pollutant as well. And another thing that's kind of gotten big is pools, actually chlorinated pools. High chlorination is an immediate kill to aquatic life when it hits a stream.
And this time of year, people are starting to fertilize their lawns because they want that nice green lawn, and that is a pollutant as well that can wash down.
Yes,
right?
ma'am, it sure is. And the recommendation there is, just make sure you use it properly and don't over-fertilize.
Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of times, my husband, he likes to wash his vehicles and everything in the driveway or on the grass, and sometimes those can be considered pollutants as well. If you're not using like the green type solutions to wash your vehicles, right?
That's correct. There is a tricky with car washing. Commercial car washing, their detergents tend to be a little more concentrated, so therefore it would be a worse pollutant than your general go to Walmart, pick up car wash. What we do recommend is to wash it on a vegetated grass surface. That'll allow some of that to filter out before it reaches anything. Although it is permitted that residential car washing is allowable, the means that you can take to reduce the pollution is always a benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned that pools are starting to become more of a pollutant. What's some of your advice for residents on that end?
So we're still kind of searching and researching what we can do for pools. The best thing is before you discharge your pool to empty it for the year to clean it up, let it dechlorinate. Sunlight hitting it will dechlorinate it. We normally say 7 to 10 days. Then after that, you can always test it if you want to be safe. But that 10 to 2 week period, no chemicals being added, then you can discharge that and it would not be super chlorinated to the fact that it would pollute.
And the reason why we need to be concerned about pollutants washing into our water, it goes through our streams and our waterways and ultimately it can end up in our drinking water. I mean, I know that the water's filtered and things like that, but it's also very damaging to wildlife, correct?
Correct.
And what are some other vectors that we watch for pollutants and how people can try to cut down on that in their daily lives?
Good thing, pollution prevention efforts, proper disposal of products, don't just dump your chemicals out. Make sure that you're disposing of your loose containers properly. Don't put your leaves and debris in the roadway where it can be washed away and put that organic matter into the stormwater runoff. Recycle your oil, being car oil or cooking grease oil. Dechlorinating pools, and also, pick up your pet waste.
Mm-hmm. I think we have a campaign called Scoop the Poop.
That's right.
Right? We want to also mention about storm drains. Sometimes they'll get clogged with, leaves and debris and pine straw and things like that. We can't be everywhere all the time to clean those storm drains. So what should we tell residents about keeping those drains clean?
best thing for residents to do when they notice storm drains that are clogged is to there's a couple avenues, but the easiest one in my opinion is to use the Fayfixit app. They can go online, download Fayfixit. You can select Fayetteville as the city you live in and go through the process to report a storm drain clogged. Those immediately create an SR on the back end for internal staff, and we go out and do an investigation to find out what's going on. And a lot of times they turn up with an agreement with the citizen to say that the storm drain is clogged and that we do need to go take care of it, because the city does maintain anything inside of the right of way. But like you said, I think at last time I looked, it's like 39,000 some odd catch basins around the city of Fayetteville,
a lot, yeah.
and there's just not enough staff to be able to go around and check each one of them on a routine basis. So we rely pretty heavily on the citizenry to be able to do that.
Yeah, so if you're a resident and you have a storm drain in front of your house and you see that there's debris on it, I mean, just go out and, push it to the side or push it off or something like that. That's very helpful, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned an acronym, SR, service request, I imagine?
Service request.
Yep. Okay. And then I was going to ask, too, kind of the importance of keeping these storm drains clean. Like, why should people worry about it or report it so that they can be declogged?
So the main reason is the storm drain is what carries all of the water coming from impervious surfaces, mainly in the roadway, but also in other areas. You say you have a storm drain in your backyard that's collecting a lot of storm water for your neighborhood. Well, that's not only collecting storm water that may be coming off of the roadway, but it could also be designed to collect storm water that's coming off of your patio or your roof. Anything that we call an impervious surface, which just means an area of ground that is no longer open and available to soak up stormwater. Anywhere that creates runoff, which creates more stormwater headed to the storm drains. And when those storm drains get clogged, they can no longer function at their maximum capability. And they're designed with a certain margin of error to say that that eventually with just being in the ground over time, they eventually get clogged to a certain extent, and they're still designed to function in that manner. But if you let it get real clogged, if you see a bunch of trash in the bottom of the storm drain, and then all of a sudden we have one of these drenching rains that we see sometimes in the summer that just fall a flood quickly. Sometimes the drain itself doesn't have time to process all the debris inside of it and be able to push it through the pipe to get it out of the system, and ultimately it just slows the water down, causing a further backup and a slower rate of dry. You don't get dry as quickly.
Mm-hmm. So, Nick, what are some of the things that the Stormwater Division covers in your daily routine when you go out? What are some of the things that you do?
So, in my position, we do a lot of inspections looking for illicit discharges, which would be any kind of discharge that is a pollutant to water or stormwater in general. Uh-huh. Once we find those, we take the enforcement actions to get it corrected so it no longer pollutes. But there are other things. Kayla here, she's over our public outreach and education. That's a big part of our permit that we have from the state. And we also have maintenance duties. Street maintenance does a good job at getting into these things, like Ryan was saying, with catch basins that are clogged, keeping systems jet rotted so there's not sediment and it can allow the water to flow properly and help reduce as much flooding as possible.
Now, do you also do inspections at restaurants to make sure that they're disposing properly of their grease, or do you do those?
Yes, ma'am. We have over 500 restaurants in the city that we inspect yearly. We assure proper disposal of cooking oils and greases, trash, make sure that dumpsters aren't leaking, make sure they're not dumping their mop water out on the pavement just for it to run around. We assure that they're using their mop sinks and that they're using proper disposal of their chemicals and things like that. We also have other categories of inspections that we do, but restaurants being so many in the city is a main concern.
There's a lot of them here, aren't there?
There sure are.
There's a lot of restaurants.
Tell me some about this DAP program. Who am I going to for?
So the Drainage Assistance Program was created by City Council in September of 2019. There were verbiage changes to the Stormwater Ordinance in July of 2019, and the new verbiage changes made the correction to say that the city was only responsible for functional maintenance of stormwater infrastructure inside the right-of-way of the streets or inside of city-owned easements, city-owned or city-maintained easements. But anything outside of those right-of-ways is actually the responsibility of the property owner that infrastructure exists on. So we realized pretty quickly that there's a lot of off right-of-way infrastructure just based on the way that developments were constructed prior to these development changes in like around 2009. And the DAP program was created to go in and do off right-of-way projects. So there's about 15 or so criteria that homeowners have to meet. Some of them fairly simple to include essentially just applying to the program. You have to submit an application to be eligible. You have to be a member of the city of Fayetteville, so your address has to be a city of Fayetteville residence. And some of them others a little more specific. Specifically excluded items would be ditch maintenance. The DAP program won't go out and work on ditch maintenance, and we won't do anything other than subsurface drainage infrastructure. So if you have say you have ponding in your yard and you want the city to come dig a ditch, well, that's not eligible for DAP. But the DAP program is designed to catch the bottom 10 to 15% of capital improvement projects that exist. So if you have a stormwater pipe that runs through your yard and say you have a sinkhole over it, the repair to that would technically be a capital improvement project because we're improving the infrastructure in the area. But it's so small that it pales in comparison to some of these other large infrastructure projects that are prioritized at a greater rate due to the number of people that it's servicing. So the DAP program was designed specifically to put intentional focus on that small 10 to 15% that, not to say we'd never get to them, but just on the cycle of it, it would be a very long time, and these residents would have to deal with issues in their yard until the time we got around to it. So DAP was designed and funded to specifically focus on those that 10 to 15%.
How does a resident apply for the DAP program?
So there's a couple ways. The easiest way is you go online to City of Fayetteville, the City of Fayetteville website, and you can search it as City of Fayetteville NC Drainage Assistance Program. There's a whole page that really explains the program, a lot of the criteria. You can read quite a bit about how the program works. And then at the bottom, there's a link to the application. It's a PDF application. Fill it out and submit it. It can be submitted by mail, sent to City of Fayetteville, sent to the city, or it can be submitted through email. The email option, we're working right now to create a DAP email. The email that is on the old brochure is incorrect. So right now, it's preferred that either mail it to us or call the Stormwater hotline, and the office assistants at the other end of the Stormwater hotline will put you in touch with the application. They can send it to you through email, and you can reply to their email, and then it'll get to us that way.
And the number for that hotline's?
Is 910-433-1613.
And would they also call that number? Let's say we have someone that is witnessing an illicit discharge. In layman's terms, they're pouring oil down the drain or something like that. Do they call that same number if they want to report something like that?
Yes, ma'am. You can call the same number, and they will contact us to go out and investigate.
Okay. All right.
We get a lot of people that when they do finally get to the Stormwater hotline, they mention that they have called other people or they have called PwC. They've called other agencies or other avenues trying to get a hold of us, and then they say, "Oh, finally, I got in touch with the person." And because usually when they either through the C-Click Fix route, when it creates an SR, we're really on top of that. That is by far the fastest because that auto-populates. It doesn't, they give us all the information and it just sends us a service request so we can see that in our inboxes immediately. Or calling the 1613 hotline number. That gives us the ability to talk to somebody. So if you have a situation that you may not entirely understand, to say, well, I've got runoff coming from a few directions. I don't know where it's coming from, and it'd be easier to explain that to somebody. I think citizens should be able to just call that hotline number and talk to the individual on the other end of the hotline. It just gives a real personal image to the city. I heard a lot of homeowners say that they were thankful to be able to call and not get an automated machine and say, hey, I could talk to a person who could explain it to me or put me in touch with the right person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So residents can either go to the Fix-It app to report some issues. They can call the Stormwater hotline. Mm-hmm. And for information about the Stormwater Division and what you all do, they can go to fayetteville.nc.gov/stormwater.
Or call the hotline as well for that.
Yep. Okay. What are some other projects that Stormwater Division is working on?
There are several capital improvement projects going on right now. A lot of them are still in design phase. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any of them that are in current construction other than there's a major CIP out at Devonwood Dam. Devonwood Dam is currently where we're working on the Devonwood Dam, and it's nearing completion. We're working with the State Division of Dam Safety to try to get the dam up to their standards, and as soon as we get the green light from them, I believe we're impounding it.
Another one would be the North Street drainage upgrade. They're going down North Street, upgrading the infrastructure there. They found some issues, and that's a big project, to my understanding, that's going on there too as well.
I think a few of the other ones that may still be... Actually, I think Sunbury has been bid. There's Sunbury Drive is another one. Let's see, you said North. Sunbury Drive, Neville Street, Tryon Drive, Sesame Street. There's quite a few of them that are in the works right now, but it's I don't know specifically where they're all at as far as going out to bid or exactly where they sit as far as construction.
So, Kayla, I'm going to jump back to you real quick. You are the stormwater educator, and how do you get information out about what the Stormwater Division is doing?
So you can definitely find things on social media. So we do have a public service page on Twitter. So you can go there if you want to see different information, different projects. Check out the City of Fayetteville social media. We put up different information. There's Fay TV you can go to. We do different videos and things like that. The thing I love doing is going out to schools and speaking to the kids, because certain little things they do not know. They might go outside and, I don't know, throw out some paint or some oil in the storm drains and not even think about that this is something that they're doing that's, maybe not helping your environment. So going out, educating students and educating people in the community. So going out to different events like the PWC Expo, Dogwood, you can come out, ask questions if you have any, and just get some cool swag also.
Cool. All right. Well, I want to thank each of you for coming on the podcast today. We've learned a lot about stormwater, what you all do, and hopefully our listeners have learned some things that they can do to prevent stormwater pollution.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having us.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys coming out. That wraps it up for this episode of the Fayetteville 411. The Fayetteville 411 is one of several podcasts that the city produces for our podcast channel, Radio Fayetteville, as we provide timely and informative updates on a variety of topics related to the city of Fayetteville. Be sure to subscribe to Radio Fayetteville on Apple iTunes, the iTunes podcast app, Spotify, TuneIn, and more.
You can also listen to every podcast that Radio Fayetteville has to offer by downloading the Fay TV streaming app, available on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and Amazon Fire TV. You can view all of our video content by visiting faytv.net. To get information about city services, go to our webpage at fayetteville.nc.gov. Thanks for joining us.